Ys want to learn. Here's one thing you probably see back at the office or in the store. A Y comes up and says, why'd you make that decision? And a boomer usually gets very upset, and they think that the Y is offending them. Why would you ask why I made that decision? Do you not like my decision? You're young, you've been here for just a few months. How can you question that? Do we have some of that? The Ys aren't challenging the decision, okay? Ys view people, and especially older people, as mentors. They want to understand how you came to that decision. They aren't challenging the quality of it. Now, a boomer or a traditionalist would never do that, likely, because, hey, I'm here, I'm new at the company, I'm not supposed to ask those kind of questions. But Ys don't, and guess why they don't? Boomers raised them that way. Boomers did it to themselves, if you will, and the reason they did is because boomers had conversations with their children. They didn't just say, go do X, and if you don't do X, you're punished. They actually had dialogues with their kids. Coaches, teachers had dialogues with Generation Y. So they view the world as 24/7 learning. Okay. Unlike an X who says, yeah, learning is great and everything, but I want the cash because I never know when this might go away, and I trust my self-reliance in being able to hold that. X's want money. Okay. So just remember that part about the Ys. The other part about Ys that's interesting, I have the sixth place up there. Everybody gets a trophy. You guys know when I say what everybody gets a trophy, what that means? All the Ys, no matter what sport you played, until you got to certain levels, everybody got a trophy. And it's been a big question when we look at this generation of how are they going to deal with criticism. And it's one of the things that we're trying to watch. Can they take criticism on? Okay, again, everybody gets a trophy for the most part was created by their parents, which was the boomer generation. And so there's things that we've created in our generations as we go through this that we need to be aware of. But the big takeaway I want you to think about on the generational aspect is that I work with a lot of companies that are going through issues right now where we have an experienced boomer or traditionalist workforce who is wanting to move on to something else, retire, try something different. And the concern that they have is how do I get the information into this young Generation Y workforce who comes in with all this gaming knowledge and they think they can do all these cool tools. And yes, they got their iPhone over here and their iPod. And they stand back and say, but you don't know squat about how to actually run this business. And the challenge is to actually team them up together, not in any leadership role. But the thing that I find with a lot of companies they're not taking advantage of is give your Ys opportunity. Kurt mentioned this, and somebody else who was a coach up front, I apologize, yesterday afternoon mentioned this as well. Talking in your stores with the people who are on the front lines, giving them an objective and saying, can you help me solve that? Doesn't mean you have to agree with what they give you, but you're including them in the process. They're learning. Getting somebody who has experience to kind of mentor or coach them and say, yeah, that's great, but let's get back in the boundaries here. That's what we want to watch for. That's teaching them how to do this. Ys do not expect to go into an organization typically and be told, sorry, you got to just shut up and color for the first 2 years. Then you get to talk to people. That's not what Ys want, and they're turning down jobs because of it. And the last thing I'll mention on the Ys is with the recession. There was always a question, will the recession teach them that you got to do certain things? And the answer that we're seeing right now is no. Because the other thing I found with Ys is they are fearless. And they don't have a sense of boundaries in the sense of things that can't be accomplished. That gives me a lot of hope and optimism. Ys constantly have new ideas, and they don't think that they can just be pigeonholed into one area. So the thing that you want to watch out for that with the Ys is give them some of those opportunities to challenge them. Now, I'm going to say as my final caveat, all of these are generalizations. Okay, there are events that do shape generations, they do have characteristics, but where you live and what part of the country you live, whether it's maybe in more of a rural area versus an urban area, Midwest versus the coast, it can change. You can have differences based on some of that. So don't take those as being 100% this is everything it is. But we do see a lot of these characteristics in the people that are in those generations. And the key there is understanding what's driving and motivating them, because it may not be the same that drives and motivates you. One other aspect I want to bring up around management practices. We're seeing a real change here also. I mentioned earlier command and control. Command and control is where somebody at the top has all the flags, all the objectives. They know the strategic plan of the company. They know what the store is going to be held accountable to. And the problem with the command and control, this came out of, again, the World War II, was the manager or the leader just tells you what to go do. And you report back and say, I did it. Am I done? You walk into an organization and you see people who are sitting around waiting for the leader to tell them what to do is typically in a command and control environment. It creates what we call order takers. They're waiting for the order. And in some places, in some organizations, that's okay. You need that. I mean, being frontline in the store is going to be much more procedural based than if you're back at the office potentially. But here's the change that we're seeing, and the X's and the Y's are definitely going after this. What you're seeing is the manager or the leader is sharing the objectives with the staff. The staff understands the strategic plan, and they're moving towards trying to fulfill that strategic plan. That allows for ideas. In one of the afternoon discussions, there was a lot of talk about this, about making sure that your staff is plugged in. I believe that if you have a person in your company who does not understand the overall strategic plan at a high level and how they personally relate to it, whether that be financial, cultural, customer service, whatever that may be, you've got a person who's lost. And you're wasting money because you're not giving them opportunities to figure out maybe new ways of how they can enhance that relationship or that strategic plan. That's what you want to watch for. This is where you got multiple people running down certain paths, and the manager's job is to really coach them within the boundaries. Here's the rules. You can do this, you can't do that. Here's some of the policies that we have. We don't want to go down this path, and here's why. That's what you're trying to communicate. It's hard for a lot of the command and control managers because they believe it's relinquishing control, and when you relinquish control, you're giving up. And you've got to be able to be okay with that. You have to change what you can control. I'm going to put this slide up because everybody when I do these presentations, they like a lot of these. These are the differences between the generations, between what we've seen in more traditional type of workplaces versus the emerging. Promotions, and this is a big one. A lot of organizations have promoted based on how long you've been there. The younger generations don't buy into that. That's why they come in and say, you know what, I just did the work that the other person did that's been here for 10 years. I should get promoted. It's performance-based. The ask for forgiveness, not permission, is the other big one that I would push. Watching that. And then lastly is the respect piece, and that's a tough one for a lot of people. But starting with Generation X, we didn't just walk in a door and respect everybody day one because you've been here for so long or you're older than us. I know some people may not like hearing that, but in the generation, for the most part, that's how they viewed those other generations. So those are some of the changes that we're seeing out there. As far as preparation, I just want to hit some of these bullets for you to think of. Don't expect all teams to act the same. I find this so often in companies. Hey, this team did it this way. This is great. Let's just universalize it across the organization. Teams are made of people. People have different personalities. They have different strengths. Okay, set the objectives and let the teams figure out how to hit them. The big picture is about the strategic plan. Experimentation, exploration, and evolution. I find so many companies don't necessarily support that. It kind of ties in with the innovation theme. But allow people to make mistakes in non-critical areas. That gives you opportunity there. And then a couple others I want to hit is wherever possible that you can move towards being a more of a function-based, or from a function-based work to a performance-based work or project-based work, where you're trying to achieve an objective, is helpful. They know what the target is. And your job as a leader is to help coach them to figure out those solutions, not to give them the playbook that says, here's how you get from A to Z. All right. The words that I think of right now in this economy with companies, and the companies, yesterday there was an image of a dinosaur, is flexibility, adaptability, and agility. When things are coming at us in a 24/7 world, and something that we don't even know tomorrow could have an impact on your business or our economy, the companies that are surviving are moving faster, lighter, more adaptable. They're not being constrained just by a whole set of procedures and processes. And again, I'm not necessarily speaking about some of the stores in that example, because there are areas, manufacturing lines is another one, where you do have procedures. But the ability to be able to get a team to think about a new approach and to innovate that is what we want to be able to drive towards. Right? Having those conversations with your team, that's what I would want you to leave with, of understanding what drives them, what ideas do they have on how to improve the company, and then to be able to leverage those.